Step into realms where the heart takes flight, where strategy meets the edge of night. The Dungeons, Dragons, and Psychology podcast. Prepare your mind. Now be our guest.
It's more of an open mic, right?
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
it is. It's very much so an open mic.
All right, let's do this thing, guys. Oh, wait, I'm already recording. There we
thank
go.
goodness.
Apparently, this is all part of the intro. Hello, my psyclithids, and welcome to another episode of the Dungeons, Dragons, and Psychology podcast. I am joined today with, slightly less than half of my entire gaming group. Jamae, Dustin, and Kimothee are all at the table with me today. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, cyclithids.
Woohoo.
Hey, everybody, here's your alchemist right here.
Yes, absolutely. And today we're going to be talking about something really fun, which is playing monsters to their mental stats. A lot of times monsters get dumbed down in games by the DM. And the reason for that a lot of times is because they don't want to have so much risk for their players, or they don't want the story to go a certain way. But a lot of times the challenge is reduced because monsters aren't as smart as they should be. Monsters aren't stupid unless they have a low intelligence.
Right.
But even a 3 intelligence still is intelligent. Let's be fair.
Well,
More
intelligent
intelligent
enough
than
to
a
run
dog.
away.
Yep.
More intelligent than a dog, more intelligent than even some of your wild companions and stuff.
More intelligent than most 2-year-olds.
Exactly. So they can even still be intelligent.
Which means the really high intelligence should be really intelligent.
Right. So what does that look like to you guys? So let's just go with the standard rolling method. Character intelligence could be an 18, right? But you see monsters with that intelligence quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Dragons almost always have very high intelligence. Outsiders. So what does it mean then that in the majority of circumstances, I would say the monsters are going to be more intelligent than the players, and yet the players are always the ones that are prevailing?
Probably because the players play their characters every session and the GM plays the monsters once.
Okay.
I mean, I think that as a GM, you have the ability. I don't think that should hold the monster back at all, though.
I agree, because frankly, in many cases, you're actually encountering the monster in its natural habitat.
Right.
So it should already have, especially in the case of an 18 intelligence, it should already have hey, if this were to happen, it should have a contingency already.
A strategy, exactly. And that's the whole point. I mean, we usually just can open up a bestiary or a monster manual and look at a monster and say, okay, I'm going to run it. But a GM who does it right and prepares, and even their random encounters are prepped, they at least have an idea of not only what monster they're going to be introducing or what monsters. It's even more fun when you get a couple of different monsters working together as a team against the PCs. But what's the circumstances in terms of the terrain, in terms of what's prepared? So that's really what you need to do. And it requires some effort and some time for your DM to be ready for that.
What's your classic monster, but really your lich, right?
Right.
They have an 18 intelligence. They're going to be prepared.
Or more.
Or more. Exactly. They're going to be prepared. So
to your point, Kimothee, we're actually walking into their domain. And I know a lot of campaigns have this set, you walk through this hallway and behind this door is this, but realistically, if you're looking at an intelligent bad guy, most of the time they know you're coming.
Exactly.
From the second you walk into their castle or their dungeon and whatever, why aren't they preparing, right? They should be preparing. They should be setting, they have their pre-traps or whatever, but they should be setting the stage, because if you do make it to them, they don't want to lose any more than you do.
Exactly. And that's probably why in many cases they build the dungeon in the first place.
Yes.
Is to have a chance to prepare for you, to at the very least cast some buffing spells. But it can be a lot more than that.
Well, and even going a little bit further, okay, so we're talking about like 18, 20 intelligent creatures, but even say your 6 through, let's say 12, that are supposedly your random encounters, right? You're still coming into them in their home turf.
Right.
Why would they be surprised by you?
Mm-hmm.
In many cases, you should still be surprised by them, and they should be ready for you,
Right.
even in those cases.
Even to the point of controlling the terrain.
Exactly.
Right? They should. I mean, why wouldn't a bad guy, if they're worried about you killing them, put some stuff up in front of a door?
Sure.
Right? Throw the
Right.
chair up there,
Traps.
increase the DC, traps, put 2 guys on either side of a door. These are all things players would do that a lot of times only have intelligence of 10, which is the average intelligence for a human, right?
Even the
Right.
basics of stealth.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that's critical too. We don't always assume that the monsters are going to be hiding, but really, if they have a reasonable stealth score, then hiding is exactly what they should be doing.
They most definitely should be. One of my favorite things to do when I'm planning out my random quote unquote encounters, and I'm using air quotes because they're not random. Spoiler alert for my players. They're not random. What I like to do is I like to create a list of things that can happen in an area and then have the players roll like a D20 or a D100. And then that tells me what happens. So I already know what's going to happen. I already know what the creatures are and what they're doing in that area and what their goals are and things like that. But it feels random to everybody else.
Right. Yeah. And it just as and we all rotate GMing, right? So in this group. And so one of the things that I love to do is the commander or the person in the dungeon. I mean, the one with the high intelligence that you're going to meet, there's no reason why he shouldn't be sending out enclaves or spies or things to lead you in the wrong direction here and there, because he wants to control where you're going and make that difficult and kind of control his environment and be prepared for you. I mean, I think that's something that they miss out a lot on too. Hack and slash is one of those things that as a player, as a brand new player, yay, that's something that you enjoy. But as you mature as a player, it's something you can get tired of really quickly if it's just hack and slash and there's no thinking involved in that battlefield.
Right. I think another really interesting thing about all this is we were talking about outsiders. You mentioned liches. There are so many creatures out there that have the breadth of experience that your players don't even come close to.
The
Right.
time.
Yeah, thousands of
The
years
amount of
worth
time,
age.
the number of
dragons.
other adventurers they've faced off against.
Right.
And so very often what we're actually seeing is our heroes are coming to these monsters to be the first to defeat them, and many a long line of heroes that failed at them before. But I do wonder is that because we pull our punches as GMs that we are so beneficial or so able to defeat these monsters? Or is it just is it a sense of we want the story to always progress along with the heroes, so these aren't played the way that they should be played if they were the main characters?
I think for me, it's probably laziness, honestly. It's not taking the time to really prep out the monster to the level that it should be. And I mean, obviously, you can overdo that too. You can prep so well that you have such an emotional investment into the monster that the monster now needs to win. Well, the monster needs to try to win and use their strategies, but not cheat, obviously. That's one of the things that the GM needs to give the players an opportunity to win, at least be throwing a challenge at them that they can handle. But it's better to throw a challenge closer to their capabilities and play it very, very intelligently than to throw something well and above beyond their power and have it played stupidly.
Agreed. To answer your question, Rob, your lich should have tons of experience. And frankly, there probably should be hundreds of adventures that have come before your group in your game. But do we play it that way? And it's not even written that way in the monster manual. It's really not.
So let me ask you guys about something else that I was just thinking about. I want to say it was, I don't know if they did it in I think it was 3.5 that they first started doing this, and you started seeing it in some of the books, is where they gave round by round tactics for monsters. But I always found when I was reading over those round by round tactics, they were very situational and that oftentimes didn't fit. So I kind of wonder if you fall back on that. Do you think that makes the monsters weaker, or do you think that actually gives them the benefit of what they have as their capabilities?
So in terms of the monster manual, I agree with you. I think that they're poorly written in that case because it's assuming a lot of different things, like we kind of talked about, breadth of experience and things like that. But I will tell you, one of the best written round by round encounters that I've ever seen is in Paizo's Curse of the Crimson Throne in 7 Days to the Grave. And it's the very last bit. I won't spoil too much, but that encounter, if you're doing it by the letter as written, round by round, it is amazing, and you will kill PCs.
And that's one of those things that actually, it really depends on how it's written. In the Monsters Manual or a bestiary, it's never going to be situationally appropriate. At least in a adventure path or some sort of published campaign, hopefully the person who wrote that campaign is enough of a professional to think through, hey, how is this going to be done? How is this individual going to go about trying to defeat the PCs? And they're going to have a reasonably good strategy that they'll share with you, especially as you get into higher level villains. When we're talking about going beyond monsters, even going into higher level NPC villains that have very complicated stats, just like a character would. I mean, it would be difficult for even a skilled GM to pick up a character sheet for a PC at 10th level and in 1 minute be able to be effective in combat or any other challenging situation just because they don't know how the character was intended.
Well, and there's so many different ways that as a GM, if you do pick up that character sheet, you don't know all the different, combos and all the different things that they could possibly do. You have to play with it. I mean, being a GM, you have the experience of playing multiple NPCs on a regular basis. So you can get certain patterns that'll allow you to adapt to a situation. But even, I think that you should be playing them at their intelligence level. And as a GM, you always have that option to pull your punches at the last minute if you need to, because you don't want to ruin the experience for your characters, but make them work for it. I mean, because that's going to create a better experience overall.
Give me liberty or give me death.
Yeah.
Well, they can give you some death.
What are your guys' thoughts on monsters using strategic withdrawals or retreats?
Do it.
Sure.
All the time.
Yeah.
I love
Especially
a reoccurring villain.
It'll lead into secondary encounters, and then they'll both you and the monsters, the PCs and the monsters, will know what each other are up to, and it's just going to bring it up to a whole new level.
What they learn, especially again talking about your intelligent monsters, what they learn from the PCs in that first encounter, then that they can use against them the next time. That's always fun,
right? Or even villains that the characters don't understand are villains to begin with. Those reoccurring villains that are involved in, maybe he's the guy at the castle, but he goes to the bar and hangs out and so forth. There have been several games where that has been a big thing. And then you find out he's the villain later on. Well, he's been keeping track of you the whole time,
So he may have a 10 intelligence, but now he's got your number.
Right. I think that a lot of games these PCs that are growing in level and are so much more powerful and have so much more recognition than the regular people. The rest of a lot of games, they ignore that fact when they're drawing tons of attention to themselves. People know who they are.
Jamae touches on a very, very interesting point here, because we think about NPCs and humanoids as being intelligent and able to be socially savvy and figure out what's going on. But that absolutely applies to these ancient, brilliant monsters like your dragons, your outsiders, and your liches. They not only have been around long enough, even if they're not from the same culture the PCs are from, they've seen so many cultures come and go in their long lifetimes and centuries and millennia that they can really, really have a good perspective, and you can treat them in the same way you would treat an intelligent human villain. And because they really have at least that, if not more, capabilities to understand and to manipulate things to their favor.
Well, and what's even more, when you talk about like ancient beings and things like that, their magic is also different. They're not necessarily going to be even understood by your PCs, but also dragons can shapeshift into human form and watch you as well. So have fun thinking about that one.
They haven't been sitting around forever either.
Exactly.
It's not like they're sitting down. Let's say, for example, like a demon. They're not sitting in the void, going, no. 10 to 1, at least in the Pathfinder world, they've been at the world wound, battling it out over and over and over again constantly. And so they have all this experience that we just need as GMs, I think, to bring to the game.
I think devils in particular are one of the ones that you, Rob, has done particularly well at. as a villain. You treat devils like devils should be. They're maniacal manipulators who are able to figure things out. And typically speaking, the first time a devil encounters a PC that I've been in one of your games, it's never clear until much, much later, but the devil knew exactly who the PC was and exactly what they wanted to achieve long before they met them, but they never gave the PC any impression that that was the case in the initial encounter.
Just a question for Rob. How many Faustian packs have I signed with you over the years?
I just, as an out of character thing, it's written in my contract that whenever I have a D&D game, I always have to incorporate devils as intelligent as they are. Otherwise, I would not be granted the powers that they gave to me when I signed my own Faustian pact. So
sounds familiar.
It's just an homage to what I'm required to do as part of my package.
Yeah, I always wondered why your skulls was started with caught on fire.
We'll be right back.
Hey, psyclithids, if you love the Dungeons, Dragons, and Psychology podcast and want to help keep it alive, there are a ton of ways you can support the show. Join us on Patreon for exclusive content like NPC character sheets, early access to new products, and even first looks at DM's Assistant app. You can also grab gaming-inspired merch on the Etsy shop, Games for Games, or pick up one of my books, The Player's Handbook to Real Life, or Session Zero, the DMG to Writing Great Campaigns in any system. And even if financial support isn't in the cards for you, you can still help by sharing the show, leaving reviews, or introducing new players to our community. Links are always in the show notes, and thank you for being the heart of our adventure. No, but I do like, I think devils are kind of an easy one to play more intelligently because they have such a structure. And if you read into their mythos and their hierarchy, it's easy to understand how intelligent they are and how their world structures. And I think with some of the other monsters that might be more chaotic or may not have that same level of dictated structure, it's not as easy to see that they're intelligent. But I'm just sitting here listening to us talk about this, and I'm realizing that one of the things that might be lacking when we're making intelligence checks to identify monsters, I don't really, maybe one or two times, recall a DM responding with, well, one of the biggest things you need to know about this creature is that they're incredibly intelligent and they will probably outthink you.
Right.
That is a very good point.
But I think it probably would happen more often than not.
Yeah, especially when you're talking to someone that is brilliant, like you're talking to a wizard who encounters a lot of people that are not as smart as they are. And then to have someone or to come across a creature that's almost as intelligent as the wizard is. I'm sorry, what? Mm-hmm. That's a big deal.
Or more so, yeah. Like in the case of an advanced dragon, they're definitely going to probably have the ability to outthink you. Right. But we never, I think just as a failing as my own DMing, I never really look to the stat block other than the physical stats, because I might say, oh, they're very strong.
Sure.
They're going to pummel you really hard. But I don't think I've ever really, maybe a handful of times, said how intelligent they are.
But that's actually it's very clear that the creature is strong by looking at it. You don't need an intelligence check to know that, or a knowledge check, but the intelligence to tell them how smart the creature is would be a useful thing to tell your players.
Well, and especially with creatures where it's obvious. I mean, you think of things like sphinxes and dragons. Most people know that some dragons are bestial, but most of them are very intelligent creatures. Illithids, yeah. Those that feed on brains, like my psyclithids.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I think that they think that the dexterity, constitution, strength, those are easy stats. They automatically play out when you're playing them, whether it be moving around or attacking. But if we were to take just a little extra time and focus on that intelligence and wisdom, I think that it would just add a whole nother depth to the characters. And not just, I know we focused a lot on the super intelligent ones like dragons and illithids and not all of you. Well, I mean, you guys are intelligent, but but in our liches and everything. But it's, even with the smaller creatures, you're looking at humans. You run across them. That's one of your favorite enemies, Rob. Every single game, it's humans, because that's typically those are the real villains, anyways. Especially the lawful good ones.
That's exactly right. Because I know that in most stories, most modules that have been written, most adventure paths that have been written, at some point, one of the main bad guys is always a human.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it's because we're the best at being bad.
Right.
True.
At least
But
most
also-
relatable to
Well,
being bad.
Right.
definitely
And most relatable,
and
yes.
And I think there's just something more dramatic about a betrayal by something that we understand.
Sure.
That we can relate to. To Jamae's point, at the same time, it's interesting going back even a little bit further. If a creature is seen as being of average intelligence, tell your players that, because then when they're super smart, it also surprises them at the same time. Because I know for me, like, I've changed stats before to fit what story I'm telling or whatever the case is. So tell your players that. Tell them, this creature's generally of average intelligence, but then you can surprise them at the same time. Maybe they've been watching them for a while, and so they seem more intelligent than they actually are, or something like that.
Well, and you could potentially slow roll battle. If you tell a party that the creature they're going up against is intelligent, or, legends of them, say they're super wise, that's going to slow roll that party. They're not going to be rushing in as much if they're smart. And you always have your classic Leroy Jenkins, right? We all heard that. But most parties are going to take a step back for a second and say, okay, wait a minute. Maybe we should approach this a different way.
And that planning as a player and as a GM is some of the most fun I've ever had at the table.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed. And it also gives the GM a few seconds of breathing time behind the screen to figure out what's going on.
Right.
If you can make your players pause for just a moment. Yeah,
Just a moment, that
Just a
breathing
second to
moment.
set up.
So let me ask you guys about one other thing that started in 4th edition and continued into D&D 5th edition. And it's something that I don't know, I have mixed feelings on the idea, but it's the subject of minions, or those or the monsters that are the same as the main bad guy monster. They have all the same stats, but they just have a single hit point. So they can still do all the big, powerful things that the main bad guy can do, but you hit them once and they're dead. What do you guys think about that? Do you prefer fewer monsters that are just more intelligent and more effective, or do you like having those numbers so that you can kind of effectively have a more large scale battle?
Both. It just depends on what you're trying to go for. I'm not a fan of the one hit point thing. I think if you're fighting an army of barbarians, you shouldn't be able to go up and knife one of them and they just die.
Right.
I've always objected to that notion, but at the same time, it can be a bit of a slog if you're fighting 30 of them, in the absence of magic, for example, and they all have 50 hit points or more. It could be, a bit of a challenge. You got to balance that out. But my preference is generally, with a few exceptions, to have a smaller encounter, a little bit more manageable. You can make the pace and the cinematic nature of it a little faster by having them be more intelligent but less actors.
And in my experience in 5th edition, I haven't necessarily seen minions in that sense like they were in 4th edition used, but also think about even in Pathfinder, you have how many feats to get to Cleave and Great Cleave? It's 4 or 5. Give me an opportunity to actually show that off, please.
Right. At that level. Yeah,
exactly. If I'm going to get to that level and I'm going to sink a 4 or 5 feet tax into something like that, don't give them 1 hit point, but give them 12 or something and let me go do what I do well as a fighter.
I mean, I could see the cinematic concept of wading into a group of creatures that all have 1 hit point and throwing out your whirlwind attack and just being like, look how badass I am.
I love that, especially as a wizard with horrid wilting. Thank you very much,
Right.
Dustin.
I think
Very nice.
thank you. You're welcome. I think it fills a certain Diablo-esque kind of niche.
Yeah.
I think that there's some groups who are going to enjoy that more than others, and that goes back to what I always talk about is communication between the game master and the players, what kind of a story they're looking for. So you can use those if you'd like to, and obviously you want to be somewhat flexible. If that's the system you're playing, then obviously if you're going to deviate from that, you need to communicate that to your players.
Right.
But it's a good thing to figure out and get on the same page with, because both of them, I think, are viable approaches.
I agree. I think that in general, you're going to find those sets of players, both type of players in every group, right? A well-balanced group, you're going to have the person who wants to walk in and not necessarily, to Dustin's point, 1 hit point, but maybe two hits, right? I personally love the idea of, walking into maybe 10 guys who have 30 hit points. I'm not going to take them out with 1 hit, but 1 hit and then cleave into it and then hit another guy. It's just that it's that feeling of, hey, I've built these levels. I'm at this point. I'm not going to just be focusing on one bad guy for 4 rounds while I'm being slaughtered by 6 other guys that are surrounding me, right? I want to be able to finish him off in a round or 2, or maybe hit 2 or 3 of them and then come back and hit those 2 or 3 again, and being able to make that difference. And I think you're safe doing both inside of a battle, because you're always going to have that wizard or you're going to have that warrior who just wants to go after the bigger guys. So to kind of stagger that, right? Have those lower ones, maybe have a middle group, and then of course your main guy. We're stuck in something like that in Tolis right now, the game we're currently playing.
Oh my goodness.
Where we have those options and each player can kind of pick where they fit in.
Yep, exactly. And it's also, when you're talking about like armies and things like that, not everybody is going to be that 5th level fighter.
Right.
Right. So you're going to have the 1st level people, you're going in your vanguard or whatever the case is. So having kind of a mix a little bit, but then also even towards the end, like if you're getting to that point where you're coming to the culmination of your story, it's okay to let that encounter be the party and the big bad evil guy and maybe 2 lieutenants. You know, it's okay to let that encounter be intimate in that case. But if I'm just wading into a big group, please let me at them.
Okay, let me ask you guys one more thing before we go on to our final segment. And that is, I'd like each of you to share with me an answer to this one. What do you think is the most grossly underestimated monster, so that their intelligence is most often overlooked and not utilized the way that it should be? And whoever comes up with that idea first, just go ahead.
The Griffin.
The Griffin.
Griffins are actually above average intelligence. I don't have a book in front of me, but I would guess probably in the 14 to 16 range. They're much, much smarter creatures than a traditional monster, traditional animal intelligence would imply. So for a flying enemy, especially a medium or large size flying enemy, there are certain strategies that they could do. They don't just have to dive bomb you and attack you and land and fight on the ground. They can use all of their advantages. What I think in particular, and the Griffin is just one obvious example, but there's any other flying creature like that. The Chimera or something like that can fly down and grab onto a weaker looking, softer, squishy looking member of the party, and then literally pick them up and fly them way into the air. And what are you going to do? Attack him and have him drop your friend to their death?
That's a good one.
Okay. So mine's the Sphinx.
Okay.
And you were right on the intelligence on the Griffin. I was looking it up.
Nice.
So Sphinxes are listed, looking at 5th edition D&D right now, at a 16 intelligence. But the coolest part about a Sphinx, in my opinion, I think its intelligence is actually much lower than where it should be, oddly, because of how much information they are said to hold. They're meant to be prophecyers. They're meant to be like people, the ones that hold information away from everybody else. And they're meant to be like these guardians. I akin them mostly to dragons in many cases. And so I think that their intelligence is actually underrated in that case.
That's a good point. I mean, you often see them in games just as the giver of puzzles, or riddles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just the guardian of a door. They're like, kind of like a lapdog with a riddle.
Right, exactly. Well, but they're also, in many cases, if you can't get past them and answer their riddle, they're seen as just this monstrosity that's going to swipe at you, be a cat, and bat at you or whatever. But they're actually really intelligent. So,
Okay.
There you go.
So mine, I don't think it's going to be a classic, but it's. I just think vampires are way underplayed. I think between their ability to dominate, to charm, to control other undead, to have mist form, I think there's so much more that they could do in general inside of a game where it does end up becoming. I just think they're underplayed on there. I mean, a lot of times are bosses, but.
It goes back to what we were talking about before about like the time frame as well. They're incredibly intelligent, but they also have just eons of time behind them at the same time. And I don't think we give them the credence that we should.
Frankly, vampires should be a lot more organized than we usually do.
Yes.
We like to do isolated vampires all the time, but really, if you're a vampire, are you really going to want to be isolated? You want to create a society and a culture to make feeding easy, to have all the lap of luxury that your extended lifespan allows. Right. So the isolated vampire, I think, is something that I personally overuse. I just thought of a isolated vampire I ran 3 or 4 sessions ago. So it should
be an empire.
Yeah, or maybe if you find one, it's like, the players should, with vampires in particular, they should always be thinking, okay, we see the one vampire, where are the rest of them?
Where's the rest?
Yeah,
Where's
the rest
his
of them?
master?
Because I mean, isn't there alignment lawful evil?
Typically, yeah.
Typically.
Yeah, so I mean, they're the, I mean, outside of devils, I mean, they're the archetype for building organizations,
Right.
and working together, and of course, being a vampire, there's a good chance they have minion vampires that they can control that can't question them. I mean, that's there's so much there that we just don't take advantage of. I mean, imagine walking into a room of a vampire with three of his spawns. I mean, basically, they just dominated your entire party.
It's entirely
Right.
possible. Actually, I
Yeah.
think you win of all of our examples.
Yes. I think that's it.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on to tricks of the trade. Okay, in today's tricks of the trade, my psyclithids, I have something unique and special for you. And that is, we're going to play a little bit of a game with all of my guests today. I'm going to tell them a monster that I'm just going to pick out of a hat, that hat being my brain. And from that monster, they are going to tell me how they would utilize this monster's unique intelligence or wisdom or abilities to defeat the heroes of the story. So let's see. My first monster, and whichever of you comes up with an idea first can throw this out there. The first monster is going to be a troll.
So trolls aren't known to be typically intelligent, super intelligent, but they actually do have a lot of unique strategy. I think the stealthy approach is something most people don't consider with the troll. They have the propensity to be stealthy and sneak up. If I were to roleplay a particularly intelligent troll against my party, I would absolutely have it be a night ambush, and I would also have the troll wear a cloak to conceal the fact that they were a troll, make it look like they were an ogre or other form of giant until they were the cloak was pulled off, so they didn't even know to use fire or acid.
Never trust your eyes. Oh my goodness.
I like that one. That's a good one. Okay, let's move on to another one. How about a Medusa?
Oh, this one. Okay, so Medusas, I think of sirens, but Medusas are fantastic in folklore. So this one would actually be an artist that is actually a sculptor. And so they have all of these beautiful sculptures in their lair, but they advertise themselves as human.
So more of a sophisticated Medusa rather than the classic monster has statues running around, but there's this illusion that she's
A cultural
it's just what
savant.
she does. Yeah, she's a cultural savant, but really, don't piss her off.
So one of the mind games I always love to play with myself is what would various people in history be in terms of D&D monsters, and Leonardo da Vinci would be a Medusa.
Oh.
There you go. You're welcome.
Yeah, no.
That is
That's
interesting.
wonderful.
All right, Jamae, how about, let's see here. What's a good one for you, sir? You like the alchemy, you like that kind of stuff. So let's go with a hag.
Ooh, a hag. All right. Okay. So, I mean, a hag is a witch, right? I mean, we're talking about an advanced witch that's probably got a template or something like that. I think that with that, I do like the alchemy. I like to separate the party members in the room. I mean, not using spells, but to have grooves inside of the room previously put in there where I can have oil traps, knock my cauldron over full of oil and have it leak into these culverts in the room where the group comes in. And all of a sudden now they all have to separate. So now I've got individual party members all by themselves in these corners that can't see each other because of the fire walls that I've created through oil. And I can just attack them one at a time. Right. And I'd probably utilize stealth, but then I'm attacking them just one at a time and just taking them out, and the others can't see. All they hear is screams and between the flames.
That's horrifying.
Or you could just, steal them to the ethereal. Oh, that's never happened
That's
before.
never happened before. Stop it.
And
I hear
turn
you
them
have to
against the whole
agree to
rest of the
that.
party.
You have to agree. No.
It's one of those, you make them enough or they can't
Yeah, I can't
refuse.
refuse. Yeah, right.
Awesome. Those are great ideas, you guys. I'm going to throw one more out there just because I think, in my opinion, they are the most underutilized intelligent creature. I mean, we use them all the time, but we don't use them with the intelligence that they deserve. And that is dragons. We play them a lot, but
That's true.
they typically end up just being a bestial punching bag when we are in a fight with them. Very seldom. We've had a couple of exceptions. I can think of a white
Bronze dragon.
A white dragon.
I think I can think of a white dragon, which is funny enough, the lowest intelligence of all the dragons that we played very cleverly. But for the most part, I say, let's give them the intelligence they deserve. You're a dragon in your lair. I'm going to ask this question of each of you. You can each pick whatever color or metallicness of dragon you choose. But there's a group of heroes approaching your lair. How would you prepare your lair, and how would you destroy this party?
Copper dragon. I would have lots and lots of mirrors.
No, tell jokes. Make them laugh. Die from laughing. That was mine. Stop
I could be a
it.
copper dragon too. We could be copper dragons together.
Okay, fine. No, like seriously, a copper dragon would just make them laugh to death.
I do love copper dragons.
I
I think of all the dragons, that's probably the one we do equate most with intelligence.
Yes.
Because we think of a lot of clever jokes for them to tell when we play them.
Right. They're always kind of like that Renaissance dragon, aren't they?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, they kind of are. Okay, I'll do a different one though. So your green dragon is going to have devouring pits of acid.
Okay.
Just like concealed and scattered through their area.
Yes.
So that you're going to be they're going to be flying up in the air, and the party is going to be trying to seek cover, and every source of cover has an acid pit.
Yep, exactly.
Love it.
Right. Me, the first thing that comes to mind is I like the black dragon. Right? It's a classic. But I think what a lot of people forget is that kobolds worship dragons.
Yes.
So to have worshipers and savants and oracles, I mean, I would as a black dragon, I'd bring my resources. I wouldn't be sitting alone inside of my thing on top of my treasure. I'd have my minions, as we mentioned earlier.
Bring your
But
shaman.
my intelligent minions pop in. I might even be the bait, because everybody expects a dragon to be alone.
That's a good point. Excellent. Awesome. Well, you guys, I think, have given a lot of good ideas for my psyclithids. I'm sure they will appreciate it as they make their monsters more intelligent in their next game to destroy their heroes. And I want to thank you all so much for coming and recording with me again. I love having you here.
Always happy to
Love
be here.
being here.
Yeah, amazing conversation. I love it. I'm looking forward to playing some games where our monsters are trying to
We'll be sure to challenge you.
intellectually outmatch us.
Now I know
you
what
know,
to watch out for.
I think now that we've recorded this episode, we're all going to accept this as a gauntlet thrown down kind of challenge.
We're all
Who
gonna
can
take-
do it
we're all
best?
going to slow down and think before we enter the next room. Dun, dun, dun.
Make sure to roll that perception check, everybody. And may the odds be forever in your favor.
Indeed. All right, psyclithids, if you like this episode, please subscribe to the podcast, leave me a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and check out my book, Session Zero, The DMG to Writing Great Campaigns in Any System. It's available on Amazon, and you can find a link to it in the show notes. Also, feel free to send me an email if you have any suggestions, comments, or ideas for future shows. The address is all one word, dungeonsdragonspsychology@gmail.com. Thank you all for being here, and we will see you next session.